Thank you.
Thank you.
Secretary General Stoltenberg, that was a clear, concise message that is urgently needed. I thank you for that. And good morning, everyone. We're delighted that you could join us. My name is Heather Conley. I'm Senior Vice President for Europe, Eurasia, and Arctic here at the Center. And what a privilege it is to have this, I believe, your first public address as Secretary General here in Washington, I believe. Maybe.
That's true.
That's true?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
We're awfully glad you're here. What we thought we'd do for the next 30 minutes or so is take you up on your kind offer to ask questions, particularly on Russia, but moving to some of the challenges we see to NATO's south. But if I might, I'd like to ask you a few questions. In fact, I think the most challenging part of my job was trying to limit my questions. There's so much we could cover. After we have a few moments here, then we welcome our audience, and I know a CSIS audience, they ask very tough questions. So we look forward to turning to you to engage in a conversation. Secretary General Stoltenberg, you've been in the job for about 6 months. Maybe a little bit longer, starting after the NATO summit in Newport. And you offered a very frank assessment of Russia's military exercises. I'd welcome your frank assessment of NATO's exercising, as we've seen, certainly not the scale. But could you offer some reflections on how NATO has been exercising? We haven't done this type of collective defense in quite a long time. What are your reflections? What are you seeing as you're hearing the reports back from our exercises?
Every nation has the right to exercise its forces. That goes for NATO allies, and of course also for Russia. So my point is not to argue against exercises. If you have forces, you have to exercise them. That's obvious. The challenge is that Russia is conducting the exercises in ways which are undermining transparency and predictability, and especially the SNAP exercises. Because as I stated in my speech, they have used these SNAP exercises as a disguise for annexing part of another country, annexing Crimea. And they have used SNAP exercises as a way to mass troops on the borders of Ukraine, and also to send troops into eastern Ukraine to support the separatists. So they're actually using the SNAP exercises as a way to disguise aggressive actions. And by doing so, and also by having all these exercises without notification, without any warning, they are decreasing predictability and increasing uncertainty. And that's exactly the opposite of what the intentions of the Vienna document, the Open Skies agreements, and all the other agreements we have, which are aiming at creating transparency, predictability, so we avoid misunderstandings, we avoid that incidents, accidents, spirals out of control. And that's the reason why we are, from the NATO side, transparent, predictable. So you can go on the website of NATO and you can find a list of our next exercises and invite international observers to be there, just to make sure that they are transparent and open. We do more exercises because that's part of our response to the aggressive actions of Russia in Ukraine. And we will do even more exercises as part of the reinforcement of our collective defense. But we will do it in a transparent and predictable way to avoid that exercises are creating problems in themselves.
2 follow-up questions. Is it best to return Russia to the documents that they've signed, whether that's Open Skies, CFE, or do we need something new? Some have suggested that we need a code of conduct immediately to try to get to this notification of exercises. We're increasingly concerned that Russian military aircraft have turned off transponders as they're flying into quite crowded civilian airspace over Northern Europe. How do we meet this immediate challenge? Do we need something now as a placeholder, as a code of conduct in the immediate future?
An immediate step will be just to implement the agreements we already have. That's what I say, a very straightforward thing to do, and to fully respect Vienna documents and other documents we have related to exercises, military activity. Then, of course, we will always be open for looking into how we can develop these kind of agreements, documents. These are not NATO agreements. This is within